Welcome to John Martin Talks, where we battle ignorance and apathy daily. The growing ignorance of just how special this experiment we call the United States of America is, and the apathy that we can't or won't do anything and everything to save her. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had a great weekend. I'm really honored and privileged that you start your day, or depending on, I guess, particular when you're watching the show, you end your day with John Martin Talks. We're really grateful for that. We got a great show for you today. We're going to start off talking about something that's happening here in the free state of Florida. Man, I am so proud and so grateful to live in the state of Florida. Like I've been telling you for a while now, I'm American by birth, Floridian by the grace of God. But our legislature, and if it gets signed into law, which I think Governor DeSantis will do, is taking on big tech. They're taking on the big tech giants, and we'll get into the specifics of that in just a moment. And then I want to read you an opinion piece from The Hill. It's about Biden and the television ratings from his speech last week. And we're going to talk about what that means. And is Biden flying under the radar? And is that exactly where the progressives want him to be? And we'll talk about that. But before we go any further, I always have to mention our sponsors. Our top of the list there is BDU, Big Daddy Unlimited. Look above the show, no matter when or where you're watching the broadcast. You'll see a description to our show. Look on the links there, and you'll see links to our various sponsors. Check them out. But Big Daddy Unlimited is your Second Amendment headquarters, because not only do they have factory direct pricing on guns and ammunition delivered directly to your door, but over 100,000 related items, from tactical gear, to protective wear, to accessory items, you name it. If it has anything to do with the Second Amendment, they got it. And they're also defending your Second Amendment rights on a daily basis. So I really appreciate them. And we got some numbers back that you're actually beginning to sign up there, and we're getting a little revenue stream coming to the show. So I am very, very thankful for that. It shows it works. Please keep it up. Share that link with other people and help our show and help yourself to great pricing on Second Amendment issues. Then we have Patriotthreads.org Apparel with a Purpose. Remember the promo code, the initials of our show, John Martin Talks, so JMT, for 20% off. Apparel with a Purpose. Patriotthreads.org is a total fulfillment center. They will help you with charity events, with fundraising and those types of things by producing high quality American made and patriotic themed wear for your charity events. Check them out. Then we got Recoil TV. We partnered up with Recoil TV. They have their own YouTube channel. It's Recoil TV. Of course, we have ours as well, John Martin Talks, spell it all the way out. But we're archived on a daily basis. We have a channel within the channel on Recoil TV, which is all about the Second Amendment as well, because they produce high quality, high production videos about the latest weaponry, ammunition, and any other thing related to that. Check it out, Recoil TV. Before we get too deep into it, I got this hat here making fishing great again. Those of you who have been around a while know that they call me the old salty dog, a fish whisperer. I pretty much go fishing just about every weekend on this big party boat. I do a lot of videoing for them, and I got a picture to show you. I caught this red snapper. I'm estimating he's about 25 pounds. That's me, of course, in the white shirt behind it. That's the first mate, Will McClure, holding him up. That fish had to be released, so I don't have an exact weight, because the season on them doesn't start until June 1st. I'm happy to report he went down successfully, and I told him, we shall meet again, my friend. But that fish I'm estimating is about 25 pounds. So that gives you some idea of the goldfish that I target when the season is right out there. All right, excuse me. Let's get into the meat and potatoes of the show here. The fish and grits, if you will. This comes from USA Today. Ban Trump. Not so fast. This is the headline. Florida is about to pass a law to stop Facebook and Twitter from censoring politicians and other basically social media in general. Florida governor, and he is the best governor in the United States of America, baby. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is likely to sign into law a bill that would prevent social media companies, Facebook, Twitter, and Google's YouTube, from deplatforming politicians such as former President Donald Trump. Let me tell you, this is Mr. DeSantis at CPAC. This year was held in Orlando. They need to go ahead and just hold it here every year, because I'm telling you, Florida is becoming the bastion of freedom. You know, Washington, D.C. is becoming the bastion of repression, but Florida, led by Governor Ron DeSantis, is your free state. And there, of course, there are others like Texas and others, and I know a lot of you are fleeing some of these blue states coming here. The only thing I tell you is, whatever you're running from, if you're running from something in Chicago or New York or LA, no matter where you're going, whatever you're running from, leave it there, please. That's all I ask of you. The bill would order social media companies to publish standards with detailed definitions of when someone would be censored or blocked, or make companies subject to as much as $250,000 daily fines for deplatforming a Florida candidate. Now, that amount of money for something like any of these big tech giants is minuscule, but the idea that they could be open to court challenges, now that is a whole nother ballgame. So they have to basically tell you and provide evidence of why they are deplatforming or censoring you, and you know, excuse me, you know that they are. But it says the bill would require a social media company to notify users, not just politicians, within 7 days that they could be censored, giving them time to correct post. Now, that particular part, correct post, I have an issue with, because it's one thing to put out absolute false information. And I know people have done that, and I don't have a problem with them trying to fact check to a certain extent, but the fact checkers seem to be one-sided. But my bigger issue is, how do you correct an opinion? Because, you know, you used to be in America, before all this censorship, you had a right to be wrong. And that's very, very important. People sometimes don't understand what I'm talking about there, but you have a right to be wrong. You don't have to be right on everything. You can have an opinion, and your opinion is not stated fact, it's your opinion. Now, I call it, opinionated fact, because a lot of my opinions are facts nonetheless. But I tell you all the time, do your own research. You don't have to. You could take my word for it, but I don't tell you to do that. Check it out yourself. But how do you correct an opinion? And then the bigger question, do you want to correct an opinion? I mean, do we want to live in a society where you correct opinions all the time? And I tell people every now and then, those of you who think you're absolutely right all the time, they really piss off people like me who are. I'm just saying, But think about this. Over the weekend, we heard that there was a letter written to the CEO of Schuster, I believe, Schuster, to stop publishing books tied to anybody with Trump. It's centered around Mike Pence's new book that's coming out. Now, this was written by several hundred employees of Simon & Schuster. They wrote to the CEO saying that they did not want the CEO to publish any books. It didn't have anything to do with what they had in them, any books that came from former Trump administrators. Now, that is just crazy. And think about this, ladies and gentlemen. It's never the good guys that are about censoring. When any group of people are trying to censor somebody, burning books, basically banning books, which is the new burning of books, by the way, you ever notice that it's never the good guys? I want to play you a video right now. There's no audio on it, so it's not any kind of technical difficulty. I think you'll get the drift of it. We'll play a minute or two of it, and I want to come back and talk about it. But think about the evil behind what you're about to see. Check it out. I think you get the picture of the action really speaks for itself, does it not? In case you don't know, if you're not really a student of history, that is Nazi Germany in the early 30s with the rise of Hitler. one of the things they did was want to obliterate anything that they didn't believe put the message of Aryan superiority out there. So they destroyed works by, any Jewish author, which we know throughout literature, Jewish authors have been some of the most prolific and greatest we have. And if this is something I hadn't said in a while, but have you ever noticed that the majority, I mean, by an overwhelming majority of Nobel Prize winners, and almost in every category, are Jewish people? Have you ever noticed that? So, when you start thinking about, and how many jihadists are on that list? None that I know of. But banning and burning of books, because banning is the new version of burning books. I mean, they're going, for God's sakes, they're getting rid of Dr. Seuss. I mean, what more do you need to say? But it's never, I want to warn you about this. If you're a snowflake out there and you're like applauding this kind of thing, understand that it never leads to any good actually comes from it. And when they get through burning and banning the books that you don't like, they're going to come, and get yours as well. That's the way fascism works. That's the way communism works, all of that kind of stuff. But I'll repeat again, it's never the good team that bans books and censors speech. Republican lawmakers in Florida said legislation is needed to curb the influence the nation's leading social media companies have over the national conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm a big free enterprise guy. So I'm one of those people that is a little reticent to tell these big companies what to do. But the reality is they control the public square now. And we're certainly determined, I joke a little bit about it because we don't say the F word here. We say mod instead of that other thing like voter mod. We don't say we say stuff that rhymes with squeal, or instead of the actual other S word that's out there. And I joke about it, but the reality is if I talk about voter mod in an open way, they're going to ban me. They're going to put me in Facebook jail, all that kind of stuff. So me and Billy Bob here, he's my psychic sidekick, by the way. If you haven't met Billy Bob, yes, some of us are sicker than others, and I'm a fish whisperer. He's my psychic sidekick. He has a Twitter handle. It's at BillyBobBass1, and mine is at John Martin Talks. We are determined to stay in the public square. So these, if it were a fair situation, then you wouldn't have these monopolies, because things like Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube are given monopoly status and protective status from lawsuits by the federal government. So if we're not going to have this, then we could take away their protections. Then we might not need this type of legislation. But we need a national conversation, but we're not having it because one side is being curtailed. They just are. And so ask yourself, what is the left afraid of? What are they so afraid of that they want to ban books from the Trump administration? What are they so afraid of that they want to curtail speech like I'm doing? And believe me, we are being curtailed. I'll just give you a quick point. Over a year ago, we had a few of our episodes that actually got above 200,000 views. Now, I'm not saying the fact that we are down to, a fraction of that is not based something on maybe the quality of the show. But the reality is, ladies and gentlemen, Facebook, to give one example, they put out a notice about a month before the election in 2020, but a month before November 3rd, that they were going to curtail. And they made it sound like it was all political speech. They were going to stop political advertisements, and they were going to literally curtail shows like ours, not me specifically, 2 weeks leading to the election. And they absolutely did it because, yeah, we had a few shows that went over a couple 100,000, but we were averaging about 30,000 views on Facebook alone leading up to that. And literally within that 2 week period, we went down to like 1,000. And then we started getting back up slowly but surely till we were averaging about 15,000. And now we're cut back down to where, we're a fraction of that. Now, I have a very loyal group of listeners. You chime in, especially on my personal Facebook or the show's personal Facebook site, and I am truly grateful. So I got to believe that if we could get more eyes on the prize, so to speak, the show, that we would do even better. but it's difficult on Facebook. Now we're expanding across multiple different platforms. We're working on all kind of things that are going to help the show. I just saw the where we're going to be relocated here in a few weeks. Big Daddy Unlimited has got a new building that they're developing, and it is spectacular, and the studio. So you're going to see major improvements. But what is the left afraid of? What are they afraid of? And I would tell you, they are afraid of everything. This video was from just this past week. This is Joe Biden speaking in Georgia the day after his great speech, the most stupendous speech that's ever been delivered to a basically empty House of Representatives and Senate chambers, or House chambers, a joint session. It was like, you couldn't even see anybody smoking a joint, let alone a joint session in that place. It was like empty. But this is Joe Biden at the end of his speech, and he forgets something very important, and he's literally scared to walk off the stage without it. Check it out.
Looking for my mask. I'm in trouble.
I'm so glad I finally found you. That's that one.
Wow. He literally admits, I'm in trouble. I mean, couldn't he? The man has had both his shots, right? So he's supposed to be immune to this. Everybody around him has been tested and have shots, yet he can't simply walk off the stage outside without his mask. Now, did you notice the music they were playing? Your love is lifting me, looking everywhere for it. I can't find my mask. Well, apparently they have masks handy, but the Secret Service or one of his aides brings a mask up there. If you watch that video again, you'll see it kind of at the end there. I just thought it was funny that they didn't want to just hand me the mask. They handed it to like Jill Biden, and it looked like she basically pulled it out of his rear end and handed him the mask. So they have a bunch of masks. I wonder how many official Joe Biden masks they have out there. But what happened to Joe Biden? I'm in trouble. I can't leave. I mean, they're afraid of everything. They're so afraid, ladies and gentlemen, just to give you another example, Joe Rogan, who, Joe, let us, shake your couch cushions. Let us have a few of them million views he gets. But Joe Rogan is incredible, right? But he last week, I mean, even he is having to kowtow to this fear. Because as great as Joe Rogan is, he said last week on his show something to the effect, and it's not me saying it, algorithm, before punish me or whatever. It was Joe Rogan said basically when it comes to masks that 21-year-olds, I think he was responding to a question from one. He said, you really don't need your mask. You're at extremely low risk. You need to just go about your business. I'm paraphrasing. He said, you really don't need a mask and you don't need vaccination. That's what really got him in trouble. And they got such pushback. He's got like $100 million contract with Spotify. Just give me some couch cushion money and I'll be in there. But he literally did. Now, Joe Rogan is a guy, and I respect Joe Rogan. He never really apologizes in the past for what he said. He's outspoken, and that's why people like him so much. He's plain talking, outspoken guy. But he had to come back and walk those statements back. And I guarantee you, I don't have any proof of this, but I guarantee you Spotify came to him and said, look, you need to kind of walk this back, or we might have some issues there. For $100 million, that'll squelch you quite a bit. So even he had to walk this back because the left is afraid of everything. I'm not talking about Joe Rogan of the left, but they're afraid of his voice. They've been trying to squelch him for a long time. I say, go Joe, talking about Joe Rogan, go. But I have to tell you, as a fan, I was a little disappointed that you walked that back, because I think what you said might have been, might have at least had a point. It's certainly based on some credible science, right? But State Representative John Snyder, who is a representative here in Florida, he said this about the bill. He's a Republican. What this bill is about is sending a loud message to Silicon Valley that they are not absolute arbiters of the truth. And I say, amen, sir. States have to start pushing back. States absolutely have to push back. You know, I've been talking about this, that states need to form an alliance. In other words, they can't do everything individually. Florida right now pushing back on big tech. Well, they need to be supported if there's court challenges to this by states like Texas and Louisiana, Mississippi, you know, Alabama, a lot of, you know, free states that want to be free. Some of the western states, they need help from that. Just like Texas, obviously, is taking on a lot of border issues. Well, they need help from states like Florida to join up with them on court challenges and stuff. And you're going to see more and more of that. There's going to be a secession of sorts, not like the Civil War, although it certainly could come to that, and I'm not advocating that. But what I am advocating is a pushback at the state level, and that's what's happening in the free state of Florida. As I say, American by birth, Florida by the grace of God. That's what has to happen. And we, the American people, got to start pushing back. It's not enough for just moving out of New York, which I don't blame you. I don't blame you from coming to Florida or North Carolina or place south. You know what I'm talking about. I don't blame you from leaving California and coming to Texas and everything else. As I say, leave whatever you're running from back where you ran from. But I don't blame you at all for coming like that. But we as an American people have got to start pushing back like they did. I couldn't find a clean video of it, but you can probably look it up. Out in Arizona this past week, they had a group of people, a group of parents went to, because the governor, Ducey out there, I believe his name, actually did away with the mask mandate on a state level. It's like left to the local. So the parents at this one school district went to the school board to advocate, not like attacking them, but just basically make their case that masks shouldn't be necessarily removed, but that the mandate should be voluntary, that students and teachers, that should be voluntary. And I think their teachers have to be vaccinated anyway. And we know that young kids, especially the younger you are, the less vulnerable you are to this. And they're not really, not only are they not catching the disease, but they're not transmitting it. This is scientific. It's not me saying it. The science are saying it. But these parents went to the school board in Arizona to ask that the mandates be voluntary. And what did the school board do? They shut the meeting down and left the dadgum building. Wouldn't even hear from their constituents. So the constituents called a meeting there and acting as if and voted for the very thing that they wanted to happen. Now, it probably has no legal standing, but that pushback made national news, and that's what we got to have. We've got to have pushback, and the schools are a great place to start. But Representative John Schneider, he said this. He said, what this bill does is send a loud message that the Constitution does not have an asterisk that says only certain speech is free and protected. Now, I want to play another video. I didn't highlight it correctly in my notes, so I let my producer know ahead of time. But this is Joe Biden. I hope we can find it. And we got it. He says we got it. I didn't highlight. It was my fault. But we got this. This is Joe Biden. Now, this was at a press conference when he was signing away your Second Amendment rights, and he talked about that. But he reiterated this at his speech before the joint session, and I'm not sure which one I got, but basically it's the same thing. I got to tell you, this is some of the scariest, maybe the scariest thing that I've ever heard a president say in my lifetime. Check it out.
But no amendment to the Constitution is absolute.
No amendment to the Constitution is absolute. Do you understand what that means? Now, if you've been watching our show, I've talked about this for the last couple of weeks. Check out our podcast. The best way to do that is maybe go to Recoil TV, certainly John Martin Talks, all my social media sites, YouTube. We're on there live every morning. Howdy, how are you guys? And they're archived back on there. It takes about 8 hours to get it back archived. Another great source to check out is America's Voice News. They're a great alternative to the mainstream media, and they can be found on Roku, Fire Stick, Apple TV. They got free apps on your Android and your iPhone, channel 219, Dish Network, and the Pluto channel. Now, we don't have a live show on there right now. We're archived on there. You could petition them to put us on live. Check it out. But go to their streaming service, look under the show tabs, click on that, search for us, and you'll see our show broke up into like 16-minute segments each day. So check that out. But what I told you about Biden when he said this a couple of weeks ago and then repeated it in his essentially State of the Union address, the key thing when he talks about that no amendment is absolute, remember this, that once an amendment is made to the Constitution, then it is not separate from the Constitution. It literally has the rule of law and is a part of the Constitution. So when Joe Biden looks you in the eye and tells you no amendment is absolute, what he's saying is the Constitution itself is not absolute. And that is critical. I'm not saying the Constitution couldn't be changed, but it dadgum sure shouldn't be ignored, which is what Biden, and it better not be left up to the whim of whoever is president. You know, their opinion rules. So essentially, Biden is saying that your constitutional rights are subject to his opinion and his Justice Department. You know, so it's crazy. But the legislation is likely to face industry opposition, you think? And they got one spokesman here. Don't know much about this person, but Carl Szabo, Vice President and General Counsel of trade group Net Choice. This is what he said about the free state of Florida's attempt to fight back against big tech. This bill abandons conservative values. Yeah, how? Violates the First Amendment and would force websites to host anti-Semitic, racist, and hateful content. First of all, how in the heck does it violate the First Amendment? They're telling you free speech. Free speech is free speech. But they always throw out, oh, then the Nazis will have, the white supremacists will have their way, right? Content moderation, this is what he went on to say, content moderation, which means what you're saying up there, is crucial to an internet that is safe and valuable for families and Floridian small businesses. But this bill would undermine this important ecosystem. Let me just say you in a word, that's nonsense. And I'm being polite. It's total nonsense. People like myself have been banned. The thing about like Facebook, an algorithm, due deference to algorithm, the most powerful man on the planet. You get banned from Facebook and they don't even tell you why. They don't even, you try to talk to a real person, it's impossible. So you don't even know what you did. And they can ban. So I've actually been censored and like put in or warned and put in Facebook jail outright for stuff that was posted. I know one particular, and I can't remember the exact example, but they put me, the first time I got in Facebook jail, I posted something that had to do with COVID. It was over a year ago now. And it was a piece that Facebook sent me. I didn't research it. They put it in my news feed, right? They're in charge of that, right? And I reposted it. And yet they're going to ban me for something that they put in I wouldn't even known about it had they put in it. And they said it was fact checked by somebody in China. They literally said that. And it was critical of China. Imagine that, man. I do remember that. But understand this, snowflakes out there. Free speech is not agreeable speech. Because if it's only speech you agree with, it's not free. You have to be able to put up with something. If you truly want free speech, you have to allow people to speak about stuff that you are adamantly 180 degrees opposed to, that you think is reprehensible. That's the way it is. Because if it's just agreeable speech, then it's not free speech at all. I mean, China is doing that right now. Everything has to agree with them. Venezuela's doing that. The worst dictatorships in the world absolutely want to dictate what you say. So I'm telling you, when you're censoring stuff, when you're banning or burning books, it's never the good guys that do that. So if you're on the side of that, you're ultimately on the side of evil. I'm just telling you what it's about. But this spokesperson, Szabo, argued that the legislation, what's in the free state of Florida here, would make it more difficult for conservatives to get their voices heard. Yeah, really. Tell that to Silk, Diamond and Silk. They were like having 300,000 views on their shows. Literally overnight, they went down to 6,000 views. Literally overnight on Facebook. So you tell me they're not being banned. But he told Florida lawmakers this month that conservative speech has never been stronger. And listen to what he says. This is partially true, what he's saying, that it's exposed to more people in a sense that you don't have to necessarily go through the New York Times and beg for the Washington Post to print an opinion piece. There's more venues. So this is his point, and I think he's got a fair point up to a point, and I'll explain. He said, no longer limited to a handful of newspapers or networks, conservative messages can now reach billions of people across multiple social platforms. That's pretty scary to them, including Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Gab, Parler, Rumble, and MeWe, Zasbo said. He said, we've seen the rise of conservative voices without having to beg for op-ed in the Washington Post or New York Times or speaking slot on CNN. Social media networks allow conservatives' voices to easily find conservative viewers. That sounds really good. But the reality is Parler was basically wiped out. Now they're coming back. We're on there. I got to step up my game on there. But they were, and Gab, I think Gab News, essentially deplatformed and wiped out. When they take away the right to have your servers, they put it up there, then they've pretty much eliminated you. And so this idea that, you got more venues, but they've been throttled back on a regular basis. Plus, as I say, these main venues like Facebook and YouTube and Twitter are protected by the federal government. Those protections need to go away. And of course, look what they banned Donald Trump and everything else. Twitter banned him outright. And they kept, the Ayatollah Khomeini, he's still on there, but Donald Trump is too dangerous. So take away these special protections they have, and I might listen to you. But conservatives, according to this article, intensified attacks on social media companies after the ejection of Trump and other conservatives in response to the attack on January 6th, the insurrection that nobody got killed except Trump protesters, right? In the U.S. Capitol. Now, we heard from Mr. Biden last week, and of course, I do these public services, so you don't have to watch Mr. Biden. Because I was talking to people on the boat this week, and they said, I don't ever watch that guy. Well, and we're going to talk about a story about that in a minute. Maybe that's not, I don't blame you. That might not be such a good thing. You may be falling into their plan. But basically, if you go back, and we're going to play a short clip of it here, in Biden's speech, he literally said that MAGA equaled Al-Qaeda, that basically may be worse than Al-Qaeda. Check this out and listen to what he says about the January 6th, quote, insurrection. Check it out.
I stand here tonight, one day shy of the 100th day of my administration. 100 days since I took the oath of office and lifted my hand off our family Bible and inherited a nation we all did that was in crisis. The worst pandemic in a century. The worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. The worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
That's good, right? Since the Civil War. Compliments of Breitbart for making that video available. The worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War. Now, I talked a little bit about this last week, and I told you how to check out our podcast. I mean, in 1812, I think it was actually in 1811, but the War of 1812, the Brits burned the White House to the ground. To the ground. I think that might have been a worse attack than what happened when the guy with a buffalo hat went into the Capitol, right? Burned the White House to the ground. Then, of course, we had a little thing called the World War II. And Pearl Harbor, when we had, a sneak attack that killed over 3,000 Americans, basically were burned alive and drowned in their boats in Pearl Harbor. If you've never been to the Arizona Memorial out there in Pearl Harbor, you should do that. Should be on your bucket list. It's pretty poignant, and you really realize what those guys went through. I mean, we stormed the beaches of Normandy, all these kind of things. I mean, but that's the worst attack. And now we're being attacked by this pandemic from China. And he talks about in that, I wasn't going to mention this, but it irritates me every time I see it, talking about the worst economy in history. Yeah, because the Democrats shut us down. That's why we had the best economy in the history when Donald Trump was in office. And now they're giving Biden some credit for having one of the best runs in the stock market over the last 100 days. But the economy was ready to go back because Donald Trump had the pump primed. So it's just crazy. But what Biden is saying, without citing evidence, I always like when they've noticed they always say that about Democrats, without evidence. But here they go. Without citing evidence, DeSantis said, the governor of Florida, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube use their size, advertising power, and global reach to influence thought and play favorites, being tougher on those who commit from the political right than the left. Without citing evidence, they banned Donald Trump for life, man, when he told them to go down there and peacefully protest. They crushed the Hunter Biden story. They wouldn't even let the Hunter Biden story see the light of day. And now he's a teacher out there at Tulane, I think, in university. I think it's Tulane, some out there in Louisiana. He's going to be a teacher about fake news, for God's sakes. But they crushed the Hunter Biden story, which is critical, by the way, because there was a poll that came out not long after the election, and the majority of Democrats and independents hadn't even heard about the Hunter Biden laptop and what was happening in Burisma and China, the Ukraine and all that. And they said, literally over half of them said that it would have affected their vote. So this stuff has real power. There was reasons why they crushed 100. So without evidence, there's all the evidence you really need. DeSantis revived his criticism after a roundtable he held in March was taken down from YouTube because the governor and scientists he invited were accused of airing COVID-19 information. Airing COVID-19 information. You want to see a picture. Now, this is a scary picture that'll show you that about the COVID misinformation. Check out this picture right here. There it is. That is Joe Biden flanked by Kamala Harris and Nancy Pelosi. Those are the people running our great United States of America right now. And they're all wearing masks, right? They've all had their shots. There's people, you talk about social distance, the few people that were there in the House chambers were socially distanced by like 100 feet, let alone 6 feet. All of them had their shots for the most part. I think they have to even get in there. And yet they're wearing masks all the time. We just saw Joe Biden video. I can't find my mask, can't find my mask. They're sending a signal right there to people that the COVID, and I'm not saying this, before I say it, I got to preface this. I am not saying this. I'm telling you what they're saying. They're saying by their actions that the shots don't work. Because if they work, I mean, the CDC has come out and said you don't need a mask outside, that you can have gatherings of people that have all had their shots. The CDC has said this, not me, but if you watch these people, you would think that the COVID virus is so viral that the shots must not work because they're acting no different after the shots than before. So to me, that's a lot of misinformation. Representative Carlos, this is a Democrat here at the state of Florida. We got to get rid of them too. Carlos Girolamo Smith, he's a state representative from Orlando area. He said, there's already a solution. Listen to this. Listen, I want you to listen to and I'm going to make the point. This is the irony in this. He said, there's already a solution to deplatforming candidates on social media. Stop trafficking in conspiracy theories. This is from a Democrat now. That's the solution. Stop pushing misinformation if you're a candidate or an incumbent elected official. Stop retweeting QAnon. They always try to throw that out there. Stop lying on social media. Ladies and gentlemen, if true, to use the Democrats' phrase, if true, then this pretty much eliminates the Democratic Party by his own standard. Remember something called the Russia hoax, the Russia conspiracy, where even the leader of the investigation had to come out and say that there was no Russian collusion by any American or anybody on Trump's staff. Had to come out, the Mueller report, right? So it pretty much, I mean, the Democrats basically talked about that for the first 2 years of Trump's administration, and most of them knew, and the media's complicit, they knew it was BS the whole time, but they came out with it nonetheless. So this idea of pushing false information out is Republicans doing it. I'm not saying they don't, but my God, man, and the mainstream media, let me just tell you, thank God for the free state of Florida and places like Texas that are standing up. I thank God for our governor, Ron DeSantis, man. Like I keep saying, I'm going to keep repeating because it just hits home more. American by birth, Floridian by the grace of God. Thank you, Mr. DeSantis. Thank you, our state legislature. We need to push back on this, to fight. If it's got to start in Florida, then so be it. Let me check my time. I got a few minutes left. I got to get into this next story here. This is from The Hill. And this is about TV ratings comparing Donald Trump's to, and this is from Joe Concha. Let me tell you who he is. You've seen him. He's on the Hannity show quite a bit. Joe Concha is a media and political columnist for The Hill. Biden's poor TV ratings against Trump is exactly what this administration wants. Now, this column is, I like this. I love this. Now, this is Photoshop, Mr. Algorithm, but I think this is the best representation you could of Joe Biden. I mean, this is before he got elected to office. What does that nose look like now? It's probably knocking paintings off the wall there. Maybe that's what the dog's so excited wanting to bite people. But this is what Joe Concha said. Now, this article is longer. I'm really editing it here, but I'm going to make a point. The 45th president was fairly talking about Trump, was fairly obsessed with ratings given Donald Trump's experience as a TV reality show star. That is not terribly surprising. So he's saying that Trump was into ratings and all that. Now, I want to play you a quick compilation because I'm going to tell you right now, this is what we need. When Trump comes back, if he does, we need more of this because he needs to get rid. We the American people, need to take our cue from Donald Trump, and we need to do some, well, I'll let him see it, and you know what I'm talking about. Check it out.
You're fired. 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 You're fired.
Let's go.
Hello, Mr. Trump. It's an honor to meet you. I was wondering what you would say to President Obama.
You're fired. I mean, yeah. Yeah, I miss you. I miss Donald, man. But that's what we need. We need to fire these scalawags, these Democrats and Republicans. I mean, really, all the Democrats just need to go because my number one goal, ladies and gentlemen, I got to repeat this because I want you to understand if you're new to the show, and I need your help with this. My number one goal, politically speaking, is to stop the progressive takeover of this country, period. So I don't care if you're running for the outhouse, the White House, the park bench, Park Avenue, dog catcher, doesn't matter. I'm going to judge you by whether or not electing you or appointing you is going to stop the progressive takeover of this country. Because to me, that's all that really matters. I'm not saying other things don't matter, but if we lose that fight, everything else falls by the wayside, right? Including the Constitution. So we need to fire them. We need to educate ourselves and others. We need to motivate ourselves and others. We need to activate, which means do something ourselves and others, like those people out in Arizona with the school board. We got to start standing up, and we got to, when the case is right, eliminate, and I mean by voting them out, just flush all the Democrats and get rid of the rhinos in the Republican Party. We got to, if we don't, I know you just want to do like me and go fishing, but if we don't do that, then all is lost. And right now we're actually losing. There's good news. We're still in the fight. There's still hope. But if not us, if not patriots, if not now, when? If not us, who? I mean, really, it comes down to that. But Trump saw a big ratings as a sign of big love. And he's probably partially right about that. Truth was and still is that the former Apprentice star and real estate mogul was a modern version of the late Howard Cosell. Interesting point he makes here. Who in the 1970s TV Guide poll was voted as simultaneously the most liked and disliked man in America. I think that's probably a pretty fair statement. There's no one out there that doesn't have an opinion of Donald Trump one way or another. That's just the way it is. Check my time. I got a few minutes left. But that sums up, this is what he says, Mr. Conchi. He says, that sums up the ratings explosion during the Trump presidency in which a rising tide, he said, okay, a tsunami, lifted all media boats in terms of ratings, clicks, and heights we may never see again. Basically, the media needs Donald Trump, man. They're searching for him. They need him because he's the showstopper. He's the one that brings the numbers. So Concha goes on to say, so it was no surprise to see President Biden's ratings fall far short from Trump's in the viewership department after he finally gave an address to the joint session of Congress. The differential was staggering. Listen to this. For Trump's 2017 address to a joint session, 48 million people tuned in. For Biden's address, just 27 million tuned in. Now, that's not just TV. That's across all platforms, YouTube, all of that kind of thing. I do a public service for you. I want you to watch some of this stuff, but if you can't, then tune in to John Martin Talks, because I watch programs and shows and addresses like Biden made, so you don't have to share it with your friend. But it's talking about here, and for a guy who received, talking about Biden, most votes than any, I would say ballots, most votes than any other presidential candidate in U.S. history, it would seem on the surface that this would be seen internally as bad news for the Biden team. But it's not. And I bring you attention to this video that was done. It's a Zoom deal. It's Terry McAuliffe, who was not only a former chair of the Democratic Party at the national level, former governor of Virginia, and basically one of the top henchmen for the Clinton administration, the Bill Clinton administration. He tells you, now this is about 3 months before the November 3rd election. This is what he says about Joe Biden being in public or being kept in the basement. Check it out.
People say all the time, oh, we got to get the vice president out of the basement. He's fine in the basement. 2 people see him a day, his 2 body people. That's it.
2 people see him a day, and that's it, ladies and gentlemen. So I agree with Terry McAuliffe. Now, we're going to skip. We're out of time pretty much. Got a couple minutes left. I want to skip all the way down because I'm going to play you this video. It's entitled, "We the People Are the Government," because this is something Biden said in his address that you need to hear. If you haven't seen this is why they want to keep you from seeing Joe Biden. Because remember, what they really want is Joe Biden to just go along, get along, while they are spinning our country into oblivion. Because that's what they're doing. The goal of the progressives to take over this country is, which is what I want to stop, is to make everybody dependent, or as many people as possible, on the government teat. That's what they want. They want you totally dependent on the government from cradle to grave so that they have the power over you. So I want to read this part, then I'm going to play this video and we'll end the show. So this is what Conscious said. So while relatively few Americans are paying attention, Biden and Congress are looking to pass some of the biggest spending packages in U.S. history in a short period of time, and they're in a hurry to do it. You better get awake. To me, I told you about they played that about absolute as far as amendments making the Constitution not the binding document. But this is and I said that was scary. This is really scary because we're supposed to be a government by and for the people, right? But Joe Biden, and this was no slip of the tongue, this was in his speech, and he's addressing Congress, not you and me, and he says this about who we the people really are. This is Joe Biden in his own words. Check it out.
The Constitution opens with the words as trite as it sounds, we the people. Well, it's time to remember that we the people are the government. You and I.
We the people. He's talking to members of Congress. So you and I, the people in that room, and he's speaking to political figures, you are we the people, not us. Because the Constitution was founded as its bedrock principle is not to empower the Joe Bidens of the world, not to empower the federal government, but to protect the individuals from the overreach of that federal government, from King Joe. That's what it's supposed to be about. But here you have Biden telling you in his address that the Constitution is not absolute, which means it's subject to his opinion, and that we the people means him and Nancy Pelosi and Kamala Harris and Chuck Schumer. That is we the people. Ladies and gentlemen, if not us, if we don't get woke up and stop this, if not now, when? If not us, who? I'm just telling you, and I'm glad to be a part of this fight, and I need your help now more than ever. Check out our sponsors, all of that. Hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I've enjoyed bringing it to you. Please go directly to all of our social media sites and share them with others. Check out, as I say, our sponsor. I'll pray for your family. You pray for mine. Let's all pray for this great nation because, man, she needs it and deserves it more than ever. But above all else, like I say, each and every day, from my heart, from my family to yours. Have a blessed day.